Hello again, my name is Dr. Bill Johnson. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Exploring Our Schools. Today it's a real treat for me because one of our colleagues here at Southside High School that I've worked with for many, many years, who is both a practicing artist and a wonderful teacher here in the high school, has joined us with two of our star pupils at Southside in the art department to talk about some of the wonderfully enriching opportunities that we provide to our students here in the art department. So, first of all, Keith GAMACHE, thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome, Dr. Johnson.
So, all right. Lucy Downing, thank you very much. And Tori Liu, thank you very much. I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind, please.
Sure.
I'd love to just talk about some of the opportunities that are there for our kids here at Southside. Just kind of, I mean, it's such a variety of things, and we think of art usually sometimes very narrowly defined, but it's not.
No, we offer a broad range of electives from half-year courses to full-year courses. So our full-year courses, typically students will start with studio and art. They might take that in the 8th grade at the middle school, or they'll take it here at the high school. Then we offer painting and drawing, sculpture and ceramics, and then that typically leads into our IB art program. Along with that, we have a number of half-year courses. Photography, which is now fully digital, so digital photo 1 and 2. We also offer computer graphics and 3D computer graphics. There are opportunities for independent study for students. Our wood design program has grown tremendously over the last few years. In the last 3 years, we've been teaching an introduction to coding class that I've been a part of as well. So our options for the students here at Southside are really expanding and strong.
It speaks to the profession, though. I mean, being an artist now is a very, very different phenomenon than it was possibly when I was growing up and even when you were growing up as well.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a very visual culture and world, so I think it's relevant for all of our students, whether they're planning on majoring in art or they're invested in other areas. Our 2 students here today are actually 2 of our most talented IB Art seniors, but neither one of them intend on majoring in the arts, but they'll be able to share how that experience informs and makes the things that they are choosing to do that much better and stronger.
Right. I'm going to use that as a segue, so I'll start with you, Lucy, if you don't mind. Artists never come empty-handed, so I'm just looking at the book. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about the art courses that you've taken at Southside and where you are right now.
I started in painting and drawing in 9th grade, and I did painting and drawing 1 and 2, and now I'm in IB art. So this is my IB art sketchbook. It has all of my assignments in it, as we have to do project objectives to propose projects, record process, do experimentation. So we also have to have a theme for IB art. So I began with the theme of expectations, and here's my first real assignment is a mind map of my IB art theme, and it was the first time I really used my sketchbook, and since then it's been with me for all 4 years of my IB art courses.
What's remarkable, I see, is that there's a lot of reflection involved.
Yeah.
It's just not production, it's produce and reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. IB art is more than just producing art. It's about knowing why you're producing that art, studying other artists, and drawing inspiration and paving your own path and your own style and your own unique mindset and inspirations.
Is there anybody in particular that inspires the work that you've done?
Well, I'm actually doing my extended essay in visual arts, and I'm studying the works of Alexis Rockman in response to climate change. Climate change is an issue that's impacted a lot of my art. I actually have a piece. This was inspired by Alexis Rockman. And I've done a lot of work related to Alexis Rockman and other artists, and here is a painting with collage paper on it, and that's something unique
Now,
about...
what's the medium? Is that water?
Yeah, it's acrylic paint on wood with collage paper and
Right.
chalk pastel. And that's something that I think is unique about IB
And
art.
there's a message in that.
Yeah, it's about climate change and pollution, and the effects we're causing to our environment, which is something that Alexis Rockman explores a lot in his art. And something about IB art is that you're really pushed to use more mediums. You're pushed to expand beyond your comfort zone. So I work primarily in acrylic paint, but for this project I decided to move on from canvas to wood and include elements of collage and pastel, which I don't normally include.
Very good. Tori, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you've done at Southside? Did you start the same way?
Yeah, so my theme for IB art I chose initially was culture, because I was heavily inspired by the summers I spent in China, where my mom lives. It's very rural. It's in the middle of the mountains, so I was really heavily inspired by the culture and how remote it was and the beautiful nature. And I did a lot of plein air sketching there, which inspired me to do.
You have to show a few of these. These are beautiful. Right.
So
Oh my goodness.
this is the road.
It's all water though, right? Watercolor?
Yeah, it's all watercolor, because it's easy to carry around. And this is a scene going to the hospital. There's only one in that town. And these are some sketches from our travels to Nujiang, and that's my mom and my sister eating xiaokao and the bridge over the river. So a lot of my art is inspired by the places I've been to. This is from Lijiang, where the lanterns hung over the road.
But so much of art is life and love and comes from the heart.
Yeah, I really love China, so that's where a lot of my IB art came from too. So,
But it's all about sharing.
yeah.
So are you in the art? In other words, when I see a piece, there's a signature to it. If I'm looking at a piece that she did with acrylic and you with you're in your art. Do you feel that when you do it?
Yeah, I feel like I'm emulating how much I love Yunnan, which is where the part of China that my mom lived in, and I really love embracing the two sides of my culture, American and Chinese, and I like when I'm painting or drawing, I feel like I'm emulating that.
Isn't that wonderful? Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely. I think that art is not just the physical embodiment of art, but art includes your intentions going into the work. So art can be a reflection of your background, or it can be a reflection of a message you want to push. Art is never just purely physical or aesthetic. It's a representation of you and your personality.
You know what's always struck me about art is that it has a life of its own once it's produced. There is the intention. It's always fascinating to listen. Even the piece that you just produced over there, there's a message in that, clearly. I mean, I'm going to make sure that my plastic does not find its way. And I presume this is somewhere down in the Florida Keys. But wherever it may be, there is a message. But it takes on a life of its own. I suspect you live that.
Yeah, I mean, the artist has their intention, and we do talk a lot about intentionality. The students have to write about that when they're presenting their work for exhibition. But then them as artists also start to realize they can share their intentions, but an audience member might not read that, but they will look at the artwork and draw some of their own conclusions. And I think one of the most valuable experiences for an artist is to find out their audience's response to the work, because then that makes the artist, you mentioned before about how they reflect upon, you see evidence of reflection in here. That's an opportunity too for the artist to reflect upon, are they meeting their goals? Is their work coming across the way that they want it to? How much do they want to control those things? How much do they want to give over to the audience as well? And that's an experience that they get to have from a very young age.
Do you think there's a point in time when, and both of you could probably answer this, where you're not just an art student, you now have transformed and you become an artist. I mean, this gentleman over here is both an art teacher and an artist. And we applaud the work that he does and celebrate it. So, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that if you produce art, I think that anyone who produces art can be considered an artist. And I think what really allows us to become the artists that we are now is especially IB art. I think once I reached 11th grade and was able to start IB art, and I began producing pieces that not only just were something that I thought looked cool, but were something that I had to research and explore and write about. That allowed me to see the meaning behind art and become more than just someone who looks at art visually, but someone who can interpret art and create my own interpretation and my own inspiration for my work.
Right. Do you feel the same way too?
Yeah, I agree with Lucy that if you create art, you can be considered an artist, but I feel like everyone is perpetually an art student because you never stop learning. There's always some new concept to explore, and there's no real perfection in art. Like, you have to keep practicing, and the learning never stops. So I think you can take on both titles, really.
That really is fascinating when you consider some of the greatest artists of all time and watch the evolution of their art as they go from a young person to an older person. It changes, you're right. So you're always a student of your own art in some respects and your own perception of the world. What's remarkable is how personal this is. And when you become that artist, you're an artist forever. So whatever you decide to pursue in college or wherever you decide to continue your studies, you now are, and you become an artist. And I think that's what's behind IB, is it not?
Yes, I mean, one thing that I would say, one of the biggest challenges as a teacher is getting the students to understand. Oftentimes they feel the IB is making them do things in IB art, but the reality is the actual practice of artists has told IB, these are the things that artists do. So then the IB puts that together and says, this is what we want to see from the students. So the students who embrace that and understand that it is about a process, there isn't one formula to make art. Lucy makes art a certain way about certain things. Tori makes art a certain way about certain things. They both have different processes, but they're engaged in the art-making process. And those students who can embrace that are the ones that I feel leap from art student to artist. And it's magical, really, when that happens.
And I know we do the exhibit every year
Yes.
in June. It's always remarkable. I'd love to see the work that you guys, I presume, will be producing again and sharing with everybody. Now, it's adjudicated.
Yes.
Could we just talk about that just for a moment? This is just not you and you and you. I mean, there are outside people who come in and provide us with an opportunity to have the artwork that's produced viewed by professionals.
Yes, well, we will have the annual art show in June, but the IB art students will be completing their exhibition typically in March. And their artwork will be up for 1 to 2 weeks in the art hallways. They actually have 3 assessment components. They have to do what's called a comparative study, which is a more academic thing, but it's very visually based, where they're comparing artworks by different artists from different time periods and different cultures. Then they have something called the process portfolio, which is essentially taking a lot of their stuff from the sketchbook, and they show the examiners that they understand the art-making process and how do you come from idea to fully finished and resolved work of art. And then there's their exhibition, which is 8 to 11 fully realized works of art that showcase really their best talents, and as Lucy had mentioned, some type of thematic connection along with the work. And those are the 3 parts of their exam.
Right. So do either of you think you're going to pursue this in your studies when you leave us?
I am not planning on, I know Tori and I are not planning on studying art specifically. I know that I'm always going to have art with me as a hobby and maybe study it in my free time. But though I don't plan on maybe majoring in art, I know that art is still a big part of me and relates to everything that I'm doing. I am most likely going to study physics, and art and science are typically on opposite sides of the spectrum, but I see a
Not
lot.
anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
I see a lot of what I've learned from art emerging in, say, physics, because art and physics are both forms of interpretation of the environment and communication of truths. And so the lessons that we learn from art and IB art in the ability to analyze and interpret are lessons that are going to be everywhere in our lives.
How about you, Tori?
Well, a lot of my work now is functional, as in like informational art, like infographics. I do a lot of commissioned work now, so I think I would like to continue doing that in college. And I do want art to be a big focus in my studies, but I think I would like to tie that in with the major I want to go with. I want to study earth science, so.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. So both of you are going to walk into the world of science, right? But your life, you think your life is different now as a result of participating in art the way you have?
Yeah, I think that art is a big part of both of us. It's more than just a hobby or a form of expression. It's a communication of ourselves and messages that we want to convey to the world. It's something that can be for social justice or any other purpose. But the ability to create is something that everyone should have.
You know, you've almost defined the role of a scientist in tomorrow's age. You know that? So it's so interesting that here you are talking about the art, but it's also exactly what many people think of themselves when they walk into the world of science. So remarkable. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I feel like IB art has been really helpful in keeping me in the world of art, because nowadays students are expected to do so many things, and then sometimes art is not a priority, but as an IB art student, it's been put at one of the forefronts of my priorities, and it has really helped me grow as a person.
You know, I feel that we're richer because you've chosen this. You know, we always look at teachers as being the person imparting, but I suspect, and I know, that as you go through this system and you grow into artists, our life is richer, is it not?
I have trouble taking credit for anything that the two of them have created. That they're two phenomenal students, both scientifically and artistically, and I feel all I've done is help, you know, usher them, or where they run into problems, be able to answer questions. But they came in with a desire and, you know, and things that were fostered long before they got to us here. And I'm happy that they chose to do IB art when they could have chosen to take two sciences or focus on some other things, and that they allowed art to be a part of their continued studies. So I consider myself fortunate.
You know, we've got to end this, but I think we're all richer and better because of the experience, and I really thank both of you coming in and sharing a little bit of yourself and a little bit of your artwork. So, Pete, thank you so much,
You're
as
welcome.
always.
Yeah.
You know, I love the work that you do and the work that we do here. And I really hope that you've gotten a taste of the richness of the experience that your children can have here at Southside High School. We tend to emphasize many times the academics, and we're not trying to undermine in any way the commitment that we have to our academic subjects, but we have to understand that the richness of the experience is the variety of opportunities that we provide to our students. This is one aspect of it. And thank you for joining us, and I really thank you all for sharing with us today part of that experience at Southside. So thank you for being with us, and we hope to see you again next time. Bye now.